So let's get an understanding now on what drives the audit outcomes of municipalities in South Africa. Mr. Wilson Mongwe is a researcher at the University of Johannesburg, and he conducted his investigation using automated methodology. He joins us now for a further discussion on this. Mr. Mongwe, very good afternoon to you. And I must say, perhaps well done. Congratulations on what really seems to be a first as far as looking at machine learning and how one can predict the audit outcomes of municipalities. But before we get into the details of exactly what it is that you've done, when we talk about machine learning, what are we referring to?
Thanks, Tammy, and good afternoon to your viewers. So essentially, machine learning is trying to teach a computer how to do tasks that would normally be done by a human. So you can teach a computer how to see and how to hear and so on. Yeah.
And tell us about this methodology that you have now used. Machine learning is nothing new, but I guess technique is everything, right? And approach is everything. Talk to us about this new approach.
Yeah, so what we did, the work that I did with Dr. Rendani Mbuva and Professor Chilizi Marwala at UJ, essentially used artificial intelligence to model audit outcomes with the aim of trying to understand what drives them. So what we did was to collate the financial statements of all the municipalities in South Africa, and then we built a model on top of that. And what our findings showed was that one is indeed able to use, to harness financial statement data and artificial intelligence to reliably predict the audit outcomes of these municipalities. Now, one of the attributes that our system learned, so essentially our system was able to learn the characteristics of what makes an entity to have good audit outcomes and what makes it to have poor audit outcomes. So one of the attributes that is learned, for example, was that entities that have high short-term debt relative to, say, short-term assets are very likely to have poor audit outcomes. So in a sense, it can serve as a decision support to any auditor who's auditing municipalities.
I guess the premise there would then be the integrity of the input data, which is the financial statements themselves. Do you go into verifying that, or do you make assumptions that the data that you receive is indeed credible and will give you the outcomes that you want, should they be correct?
Yes, so the data itself was obtained from the National Treasury website, which is an online platform where the National Treasury posts all the financial information pertaining to the municipalities. So yeah, based on that, we didn't really question too much the validity of the data, but of course it would depend on the data being accurate and a true reflection of what's happening at the municipalities. Yeah, so in terms of that, I think the data itself was credible because it was obtained via the Auditor General. So yeah, but the system itself does depend on credible data being available.
So yeah. You say here that machine learning techniques have been applied to automatically be able to detect any sort of financial statement fraud, and this has been done with great success. How would this work? Yes. How would you be able to detect fraud?
Yes, so our system wasn't built to detect fraud. Let me just clarify. It was built to model the audit outcomes, which, of course, when an entity has a poor audit outcomes, it may be due to things like fraud, corruption, and other things. So further investigation would need to be done to establish the exact reasons for that. But what our system does is that it will flag which entities are likely to perform poorly on an audit outcome basis, and then serve as input to the whole audit process that an auditor would use.
And how would this be beneficial to government and for government?
Yes, so our system could be used, for example, by the South African Auditor General, or auditors in general, actually, to flag entities that are likely to have poor audit outcomes, so that the audit resources, which are limited, can be optimally allocated to the municipalities that are most likely to be at risk of poor audit outcomes. And this will then allow more attention to be paid on those municipalities where poor audit outcomes are likely, and then a spotlight can then be brought about to find out exactly what's the underlying reason for the poor audit outcome. Is it corruption, or is it other underlying factors?
So what then is the way forward now that the research has been done, the methodology has been put in place? What has uptake been from local government?
So we haven't had feedback as yet from local government, but there's been broader interest from the broad accounting community into how our system can be integrated into what they currently do during the risk assessment stage of the audit process. But we will hope to engage with the AG further down the line. And we are also open to discussing this with any other interested parties as to how our system could improve their audit process overall.
Well, thank you very much for talking to us today, and congratulations on a step ahead, really, towards credible audit outcomes and being able to predict audit outcomes for local governments moving forward. That's Mr. Wilson Mongwe there, understanding local government audit outcomes through machine learning.